Assalamualaikum and good morning, good afternoon or good evening whenever you're watching this video. To everyone and to our lecturer. We Group 5 represent by myself Ashraf, Imer Safwan and Ahmad Mustafa.
Hello everyone, before we actually dive into the actual video, let's talk about employment in Malaysia. Focusing on age categories, especially the difference between younger workers and older workers when it comes to being employees or employers. First, let's take a look at employees or salaried workers over the years. The share of young people aged 15 until 24 working as employees has actually gone down back in the mid-1990s. Close to 28% of young workers were salary employees. But by 2016, that number had dropped only about 18%. Now, this might sound like fewer opportunities for youth, but it's actually linked to something positive. More young Malaysians are staying in school or pursuing higher education before entering workforce instead of jumping straight into jobs after secondary school. Many are taking the time to get skills and qualification that help them secure better paying jobs and more stable jobs later. For the older age group, 25 until 64, it's opposite story. The majority of employees fall into this group. More than 80% salaried jobs are held by workers in this age range. That makes sense, but because this is the core working age where people are most active in their careers. Now, shifting to employers. People who run their own business and hire others, among the youth, the share is extremely small, just around 2% or something like that, or even less in some years. It's not surprising because starting a business at a young age is very challenging without capital, networks, or any experience. Meanwhile, for the older group, 25 until 64 years old, make up the overwhelming majority of employers, above 97%. This shows that entrepreneurship tends to come later in life once people have gained experience, savings, and confidence to run a business. So, to summarize everything, young Malaysians are less likely to jump straight into salary work nowadays because of longer education paths. They are also very rarely employers. On the other hand, the working age adults, those between 25 until 64, dominate both employees and employers. This reflects a natural pattern: education first, then employment, and later in life, entrepreneurship. That's all. Let's get into the actual video.
Today, we'll be exploring the trends in employment status by age group in Malaysia from 2010 until 2018, focusing on two categories, employees and employers. This data is drawn from Malaysia's Labour Force Survey, compiled by Institute of Labour Market Information and Analysis, covering nearly a decade of employment dynamics. Looking at the graph, we can immediately spot a few key points. Employees dominate employment status in both age groups, especially among those aged 25 until 64, where share is consistently above 80%. In contrast, employees aged 15 until 24 form a much smaller share, hovering just around 18 to 21%, and also trending slightly downward over time. For employers, the younger age group, 15 until 24, barely registers above merely 2%, while almost the entire employer category belongs to the group 25 until 64. So, the big picture is Malaysia's labour market is heavily employee-based, with older workers forming the backbone of both employees and employers, while younger workers are underrepresented, especially as employers. Now, let's take a closer look at how these lines move across the years. Moving on to Ahmad Mustafa.
Thank you for Ashraf. Now, I am Ahmad Mustafa. Let's start with the employees. For young employees, 15 to 24, the share declined from 20.8% in 2010 to 18.2% in 2018. That's a slow but steady drop. Why? A likely explanation is that more young people are staying in education and training longer before entering the job market, which reduce their shares as salaried workers. Meanwhile, the other employees group, 25 to 64, show the opposite trend. Their share climbed gradually from 79.2% in 2010 to 81.8% in 2018. This reflects Malaysia's resilience on mid-career and other workers for the bulk of its salaried workforce. Now, to the employer, for young employers 50 to 24, the line is flat and tiny, fluctuating between 1.7% and 2.2%. This suggests entrepreneurship among young people was rare during this period. In contrast, employer aged 25 to 64 dominate the category, which share around 98% every year. In other words, almost all Malaysian employees between 2010 and 2018 were in the 25 to 64 age group. So, employees are broadly split between younger and older workers, but employers are almost entirely middle-aged or others. With those numbers in mind, let's discuss what they mean for Malaysia workers. With those numbers in mind, let's discuss what they mean for Malaysia workforce and policies.
Alright, I will continue with my point. My name is Imran Safwan. My point is, this pattern carry important implication. First, education shape youth employment. The steady decline in the share of 15 until 24 employees likely reflect more young Malaysian pursuing higher education or skill training before entering the workforce. That positive for long-term productivity, but does highlight the need for strong pathway from school to work. Second, older workers are the backbone of the labour market, with 25 until 64 years old making up more than 80% of employees and nearly all employers. Malaysia economy relies heavily on its prime age workforce. Supporting continuous learning, reskilling, and flexible work arrangement will be vital to keeping this group engaged. Third, youth entrepreneurship remains rare despite government programs to encourage startups. The data shows that less than 3% of employers were under 25 in this period. This suggests barriers to entry such as access to financings, mentorship, or risk appetite still limit young people from becoming employers. Final takeaway: between 2010 until 2018, Malaysia employment structure was stable. Most people were employees, most employers were older, and youth participation in both categories was limited. Going forward, balancing opportunity for young workers while supporting mid-career workers will be key to sustaining Malaysia labour market growth. That's all from us. Thank you for paying attention. Bye. Assalamualaikum.